Kanto has a postgame? I've never played it before, so this is going to be a whole lot of fun. I recently made a video discussing Pokémon Firered and LeafGreen, and how easily they've managed to divide opinion among fans. Even scanning through the comments of that video, I could see a huge span of opinions from people. But perhaps the one thing that could have the ability to bring us all together is the post-game of these remakes. I'm sure we'll find out pretty sharpish. So as I said, I've never played the post-game of Firered and LeafGreen, so I was diving into this for the first ever time. Let's jump back in and have a chat about the Sevii Islands. After becoming champion of the region, we're dropped back into our humble home of Pallet Town, where we're greeted by Professor Oak, who wants to check our Pokédex progress. And, yep, I've already hit my first wall here. You see, to access the post-game activities, you have to have built your Pokédex up to 60 entries, and I had 18. Look, this was a fresh playthrough specifically for content. I basically beat the game with the first 6 Pokemon I caught. So I'm immediately forced to side quest around the region to catch a bunch of Pokemon so I can reach the magic number of 60. I got there in the end. Even ran out of Ultra Balls and accidentally threw a Master Ball at a Paris in its place. That's fine. Mission completed, we can hop back over to Professor Oak's lab, where he upgrades our Pokédex so we can now register Pokemon not traditionally encountered in the Kanto region. This is in preparation for our trip to the Sevii Islands, which are kinda like their own region. They're part of Kanto technically, but you can't seamlessly surf over to them. We hop on a ferry in Vermilion City where we race across the ocean to the first of many islands we'll be visiting here. One island. So I'll just divert for a second here to mention that we did visit a few of the Sevii Islands briefly in the base game. So coming here isn't a complete shock to the system. There are 7 islands here. In the base game I was able to have an amble around 1, 2 and 3. Yeah, the islands are just named by number. Islands 4 to 7 are then accessible only in the post game. And these islands are bigger than I thought they'd be. There's little paths and passages spiraling off everywhere. You aren't just on a slab of land. There are caves and forests and water routes and all sorts of different biomes to explore. And some memorable characteristics in here as well. One island is kinda similar to Cinnabar Island actually. It feels very tropical, but it has Mount Ember to the north, so it's very volcanic. 4 Island has an ice cave, which is a complete flip of the page. 7 Island felt quite historical, it's peppered with old caves and ruins. So there's a real intricacy to the Sevii Islands that I didn't expect before coming here. You could perhaps say that the sheer amount of plates the Sevii Islands have spinning causes a few of these diverse areas to be a bit underdeveloped. The efforts are spread a little thin. I would have liked to have seen each island have more of an all-encompassing theme, rather than each island looking pretty much exactly the same at its base, and then just having a couple of definitive features spidering out. But maybe it was intentional to keep the core of the Sevii Islands cohesive. The story of the post-game kicks off in one island's network center, where we meet the programmer Celio. I think you pronounce it Celio? This network machine he's created is what allows the player to trade Pokemon with the Gen 3 Hoenn games. But he needs a special gemstone to get it to work. So we have our first mission. Find this gemstone, wherever it may be. We aren't given any clues. I think the game just wants us to fumble around for a little while and explore. And the main plot taking place here actually ends up involving Team Rocket. I was really excited to see how this went, because in the originals, Team Rocket promptly faded from existence after defeating Giovanni in the Viridian City gym. In Firered and LeafGreen, their activities continue on here. On the Sevii Islands, we encountered the remnants of Team Rocket, and they're using the islands as an extra base of operations. And they refuse to believe the rumours that Giovanni has disbanded the organisation. We first run into them at the entrance to Mount Ember, where they're discussing some sort of treasure they're seeking out. Defeating the grunts clears the entrance to the cave, where inside we can find a ruby. That's a gem. I assume this is what Celio was after. Indeed it was, but apparently now he needs another one. There's another gemstone that forms a pair with the ruby. I think I see where this is going. To help us track it down, we get given a new ferry pass called the Rainbow Pass. This is what grants us permissions to travel to any and all of the 7 Sevii Islands. So first up, 4 Island, where Blue is here to greet us. I'll be honest, I don't know why he's here. If I remember correctly, this is literally the only time we see him in the Sevii Islands. He seems to feature here purely to nudge us in the direction of the Pokemon daycare and tease that someone we both know is on this island. That person turning out to be Lorelei, the Elite Four trainer. And I am a big fan of this. I think it's great to get a bit more background on an Elite Four member. So gym leaders are usually characterized by the location they're based in. Whichever way around it is, the gym leader fitting the town's theme, the town fitting the gym leader's theme, you get a good sense of who they are based on the location they're from. With the Elite Four, we never quite get that. We know terribly little about their lives and their stories outside of those Pokemon League walls. So I enjoyed this. Couldn't find her for a while though, because she's nowhere to be seen in town. Turns out she's in a cave to the north. Icefall Cave. See, this is probably where she trained to become the powerful Ice-type trainer we know. We're unlocking lore. Reaching the deeper depths of this cave, we find Lorelei confronting some Team Rocket members, and we help her take them down. They've been stealing Pokemon again, and they confess that those stolen Pokemon have been taken to the Rocket Warehouse on Sevii Island. Okay, but first we need to swing over to 6 Island to find that second gemstone, which is I feel the most elaborate of the Sevii Islands. I headed way up north at first to see what was there, and the game trolls you in just the most Game Freak way imaginable by rewarding your arduous efforts with a cave that is inhabited exclusively by Zubat. Thank you very much, just what I've always wanted. Heading south will lead you to a cave that you need to use the cut HM in front of to gain entry to. How do you know to do that? The word cut is engraved on the door in Braille. Yeah, actually I forgot to mention, Braille makes another appearance, just as it did in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. How did people figure this out back in the day? Like genuinely. Nowadays, even if you disregard online walkthroughs, there's at least heavily accessible ways to translate languages online. In 2004? I wasn't using the internet as a kid in 2004. I feel like unless you had some sort of physical resource to help you out here, you were kinda stuck. But anyway, once you do get inside, the puzzles don't end there, because you've now got to figure out the right sequence of holes to drop down to find your way to the innermost room of the cave, which is again indicated by Braille in the middle of the room. Up, left, right, down. I feel like I'm doing the jetpack cheat in GTA San Andreas. In the lowest depths, we find the second gemstone, a sapphire. Knew it. But then suddenly a scientist drops in and steals it, with the greedy intent to sell it to Team Rocket and make a bunch of money. Which I think is a valuable life lesson. Just because someone holds a high position, it doesn't mean they're a good person. There's your moral for today. Now we can head over to 5 Island and see what the deal is with this Rocket Warehouse. It instantly looks very familiar, very Team Rocket with the arrow tiles. And as I mentioned, these remnants of Team Rocket are very much in denial. They don't believe that Giovanni could have been defeated and subsequently disbanded Team Rocket. But when we defeat the admin, he sees the Earth badge we got from Viridian City and concedes to the truth. And Team Rocket then flees the warehouse, vowing to find Giovanni wherever he's disappeared off to and resurrects Team Rocket. So basically, this has been a precursor to the events of Johto, where Team Rocket are clumsily attempting to contact Giovanni to entice him back to head up the organisation again. And I don't think I'd say it's a necessary extra chunk of narrative. Team Rocket's story did end quite abruptly in the originals, but it was kind of satisfying to get the final gym badge and dismantle the evil team in one final battle before heading to the Elite Four. But it's a nice way to bridge Gens 1 and 2. And it kind of makes sense that a fair chunk of Team Rocket members wouldn't get the memo that the team was disbanded, and just carried on for a little while until they found out. It's realistic for that to be the case. Our final task is to defeat the scientist who stole the sapphire, getting it back and delivering it to Celio back on 1 island. The network machine is now fully functional, and we can trade with Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. I mean, the game's mostly over, so it's kind of a completionist to enjoy, but it's a cool way to bring your Hoenn friends over to Kanto. So that's the main storyline going on here. But there are a ton of side questy things to do in the Sevii Islands too, and loads of new characters to interact with. You could spend a very decent amount of time running around and discovering all these little subplots and side puzzles. I think the Sevii Islands were a much needed addition for Kanto, because once you've defeated the Elite Four in Red and Blue, and catching Mewtwo as well, that is the game completed, save for completing the Pokédex. This postgame provides some extra content for the region and a couple of its characters, some added closure for a couple of story points, and something to do after becoming champion, somewhere new to explore. There is a certain feeling of existential dread after becoming champion in a lot of Pokemon games. The region feels less alive. This sense of aimlessness sinks in, across a region that's primary function was kinda to act as markers, checkpoints during our adventure. The Sevii Islands, though, offered a new environment that's very disconnected from all of that. It feels like this place has a unique cycle and active culture that remains the same regardless of what's going on over on the Kanto mainland. And I like that. It's a big reason why I love post-games and DLCs that take place away from the main map. That existential void doesn't creep in these new areas. Also, the addition of trading between these games and the Hoenn games, and the Pokemon Daycare, allows you to essentially have a whole new adventure across these islands, you could argue. There's a battle tower here too, so you could raise a new team and treat that as a sort of Sevii Islands Pokemon League if you wanted to. I do wish the stakes had been a little higher with the Team Rocket story. It felt a bit anticlimactic by the end of it, like I really built myself up for this Rocket warehouse thing, and it just didn't give as much as I thought it would. It could have gone a lot deeper than just clearing out the stragglers. And I think it comes down to what I touched on earlier when I said that there's so much thrown into the Sevii Islands here that it's spread a little thin. But I think this transforms my opinion of these games quite a bit. There's still a nostalgic plot, but there's this reward for getting through it now. The Sevii Islands surprised me a lot. You could set a whole game here, I'd be willing to wager. And my propaganda campaign for Kanto to get a truly modern makeover with a massive new game just stepped up a notch after playing this postgame, for sure. So I'm overall pretty impressed by this postgame. But how about you guys? Do you think it added enough to these remakes to make Kanto an enjoyable and replayable experience? Or maybe you weren't a fan and they just didn't hit the right points for you? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments, I'd love to hear what you think. While you're down there, please do drop a like on the video, it's free and it helps a lot. Subscribe for more Pokemon videos, join our Discord if you'd like to chat. Thanks for watching, take it easy, and I'll catch you all in the next one.